Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a really unconventional approach to a topic lots of you ask about.
Mastering English, right?
Yeah.
Especially that C1 level and climbing higher.
Exactly. And this deep dive, it's based on a fascinating article, Think Different: How to Achieve English Mastery Through the Life of Steve Jobs.
Yeah, it's not your typical grammar guide or vocabulary list, is it?
Not at all.
The core insight here seems to be that Jobs' life, his whole philosophy, actually offers you a powerful kind of holistic roadmap.
A roadmap to move past that C1 plateau.
From just being, proficient to actually being truly captivating and inspiring with your English.
So that's our mission today. We want to unpack how Jobs is, his visionary leadership and communication genius.
Yeah, the Apple co-founder.
Can serve as an invaluable guide for you, not just learning the language, but really designing a more effective, articulate, and, impactful version of yourself.
Using English as the tool for that impact.
Precisely. Okay, let's dig into this first part. So the article makes a powerful point right at the start. These language learning battles, they're often won or lost, really, in the mind.
Right. And it brings up Jobs as an architect of belief.
That famous reality distortion field, which for anyone less familiar was his uncanny ability to convince people, including himself, that the impossible was possible.
And the article suggests that for you, the advanced learner, cultivating a similar mental landscape is, foundational.
So it's not just about what he did, but the mindset.
Exactly. And the source breaks this down into actionable things, starting, maybe surprisingly, with finding your passion.
Jobs' famous quote, "You've got to find what you love."
Yeah. And how does that connect to breaking through a C1 plateau? Where maybe the motivation from passing an exam or needing it for travel starts to peter out.
That's the link they make. They give the example of Paulo, a software developer from São Paulo.
Okay.
His English was described as C1 functional, good enough for work, emails, that sort of thing.
Functional, but maybe not fluent or inspiring.
Right. But he transformed it by immersing himself in his real passion, vintage synthesizers.
Ooh, okay. So not abstract studying.
No, he wasn't studying English anymore. He was chasing his passion, absorbing all this nuanced language about, circuit boards, sound waves.
Learning to argue probably with real passion about analog versus digital sound.
Exactly. He was acquiring expert-level language organically because he cared about the topic.
So that raises a really important question for you listening. What's your niche passion? Something you're genuinely fascinated by.
And the advice isn't just to find it, but to go deep, not wide.
Right. Consume the expert-level stuff in that niche. Blogs, journals, maybe even content from the evangelists in that field.
Find something so compelling that English just becomes the way you access it.
Makes sense. Okay, so passion is key. But what about, the inevitable frustration, the fear of making mistakes?
Well, that brings us to the next big Jobsian idea the article pulls in, that famous Stanford commencement speech quote.
Stay hungry, stay foolish.
How does that apply here?
Well, hungry is about never being satisfied, right? Always pushing for more, better nuance, greater fluency, never settling for good enough.
And foolish.
That's the willingness to take risks, to make mistakes, to not be afraid to look a bit silly trying out a new phrase or structure.
And that feels like a direct challenge to a common C1 learner issue, doesn't it?
Totally. You get to a certain level of competence, and suddenly the fear of messing up, of sounding less fluent than you think you should, can be paralyzing.
Right. You become risk-averse. The article uses the case of Yuki, a graphic designer from Osaka.
Okay, what was her story?
Her written English was apparently impeccable, perfect grammar, great vocabulary.
But speaking.
Hesitant, really held back by that fear of making errors in real-time conversation.
So what did she do based on this stay foolish idea?
She did something pretty brave, I think. She joined an online improv comedy group in English.
Wow, improv. That's really jumping in the deep end.
Exactly. Because improv, by its nature, forces you to stop overthinking.
Right. It rewards spontaneity, not perfection. You have to respond quickly.
And she learned to fail, basically. To make mistakes and just laugh it off and keep going.
And the result?
The article says she gained more conversational fluency and confidence in about 6 months than she had in years of traditional study.
That's powerful. It really shows that perfection can be the enemy of progress, especially in spoken fluency. We've all tied ourselves in knots trying to get a sentence perfect, right?
Oh, absolutely. So for you, the listener, what does this productive failure look like?
Well, the source suggests being systematic about it. Intentionally try using new C1 level phrases or idioms in conversations,
Even if you're not 100% sure.
especially then. And crucially, seek specific feedback afterwards. Don't just ask, was my English okay?
Ask something more like,
How could I have said that more naturally? Or was that the right word to use there? Get targeted advice you can act on.
okay, so we've got passion, embracing mistakes, but there's still the problem of just information overload. There are so many resources, apps, courses.
Ah, yes. The overwhelm.
And Jobs had a very strong philosophy about cutting through clutter, didn't he?
He certainly did. That core principle of focus and simplicity.
The famous story of him slashing Apple's product line when he returned.
Exactly. From something like 350 products down to just 10. His reasoning was powerful. Deciding what not to do is as important as deciding what to do.
And that applies so directly to language learning, especially at the C1 level. You feel you have to consume everything.
Right. The article mentions Anja, an aspiring diplomat from Germany.
What was her challenge?
She felt totally scattered, trying to perfect multiple accents,
Yeah.
reading news from everywhere, watching videos on everything. She was getting nowhere fast, just overwhelmed.
So applying the Jobs principle, she
She made a conscious decision to focus intensely. She chose high-quality British English resources and decided to immerse herself only in that for 3 months.
saying no to everything else.
Pretty much. And by doing that, she really started to internalize the rhythm, the specific vocabulary patterns, the intonation of that one variety.
She achieved a new level of mastery because she narrowed her focus.
Right. And then, importantly, she could broaden out again later from that stronger foundation. So the advice isn't permanent limitation.
It's strategic focus. Choose a focus ecosystem, curate your input carefully.
Master that, then move on.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense when you're feeling swamped.
Okay, so that covers the mindset. Now let's shift to the how, looking at Jobs as a master communicator.
Yes, because he wasn't just a CEO running a company. He was Apple's storyteller-in-chief.
His product launches were legendary. They weren't just tech demos.
Not at all. They were theatrical events. Think about the 2007 iPhone launch.
Oh, absolutely iconic.
He didn't just stand there and list technical specifications. He wove a narrative.
Right, he built suspense. He even created a kind of villain, the clunky existing smartphones.
And then positioned the iPhone as the elegant, revolutionary hero solving all those problems.
And his language. It was simple, but incredibly powerful. He used pauses effectively.
And that classic technique, the rule of 3.
Like when he said, it's a widescreen iPod with touch controls, it's a revolutionary mobile phone, and it's a breakthrough internet communications device.
3 things, not 2, not 4. 3. Memorable, punchy.
So how can you, our listener, apply this, especially in, say, a professional setting?
Well, the article gives the example of Lena, a marketing manager from Madrid.
Okay.
Her presentations were apparently very data-dense, lots of charts, lots of numbers, you know the type.
Forgettable, maybe.
Exactly. But then she studied Jobs' keynotes, and she transformed her approach.
Posts?
She stopped just presenting data points. She started framing her results as a story.
Like the challenge we faced, the journey we took to solve it, and the resolution, the successful outcome.
Precisely. She used fewer words on slides, maybe just single, powerful images.
And practiced her delivery.
Yes, a slower, more deliberate pace, more pauses. The impact, according to the article.
What happened?
Her leadership didn't just understand the data anymore. They felt the success. It resonated on an emotional level.
So the recommendation is really practical. Actually go back and deconstruct some of Jobs' classic keynotes.
Analyze how he structures them, the language he uses, and then try applying those storytelling principles to your own work presentations or communications.
Maybe even record yourself practicing.
Yeah, that's a great way to check your pacing and delivery.
It's fascinating, too, how the article connects Jobs' broader philosophy even to vocabulary building.
The calligraphy class story.
Right. He famously credited a seemingly random calligraphy class he audited after dropping out of college for influencing the Mac's beautiful typography.
He called it beautiful, historical, artistically subtle. It wasn't just about function. It was about aesthetics, about the humanities meeting technology.
Standing at that intersection, as he put it.
So for your English, what does that mean?
It means deliberately cross-pollinating your vocabulary. Don't just read things in your own field.
Right. If you're an engineer, maybe read some poetry or literature. If you're an artist, read about breakthroughs in, say, AI or biology.
Why? What's the benefit?
It creates a much richer, more flexible, truly C1 plus level vocabulary. It allows you to draw unexpected analogies, to express complex ideas with more elegance and precision.
So you can talk about the elegance of a piece of code.
Or the brutality of a poorly designed user interface, using language that borrows from different domains.
It makes your communication more vivid, more memorable.
Exactly. The goal they mention is simplicity.
Simplexity, making complex things feel simple and intuitive.
Right. So the challenge for you is, can you practice explaining the complex topics in your field using the simplest, clearest, most elegant English possible, drawing on that broader vocabulary?
That's a great exercise. Okay, so we've got mindset, communication style. What about the actual tools, the resources?
Yes, the what, your personal learning toolkit. And the article suggests approaching this in a very Jobsian way. Curated, lean, high quality. As well designed, in a sense, as an Apple product itself. No clutter.
So specific recommendations for an essential library.
They give a few. For books, Walter Isaacson's big biography, Steve Jobs.
As a source of C1 vocabulary.
Exactly. But the key is noting words in context, seeing how they're used naturally.
Okay, what else?
Insanely Simple, by Ken Segall. He was Jobs' ad guy. Great for learning about clear, concise communication. And also, Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath.
That one's about making ideas memorable, sticky, very relevant.
Very. For films and media.
They mention the 2015 movie, Steve Jobs, written by Aaron Sorkin.
Yes, specifically for the dialogue. Sorkin's writing is famously dense, fast-paced, witty.
A real C1 level linguistic workout.
Definitely. And the advice is to watch it maybe in stages.
How so?
First, maybe with subtitles in your native language, just to get the plot. Then with English subtitles to connect sound and text.
Yeah.
Then the real challenge, with no subtitles at all.
And they also suggest the shadowing technique.
Where you basically try to repeat the dialogue almost simultaneously as you hear it, mimicking the rhythm, intonation, everything. It's tough, but great for fluency.
What about hearing Jobs himself?
Documentaries are great for that. Like Steve Jobs, The Man and the Machine, or the older Triumph of the Nerds. You hear him in more authentic, unscripted moments.
And of course, YouTube.
Oh yeah, YouTube is a treasure trove. All those keynotes, interviews, invaluable primary source material for studying his style.
Beyond books and films, the article talks about digital immersion, Jobs style.
Which means being selective about podcasts and online content, too.
Not just generic Learn English podcasts.
No, find high production value podcasts from your field of passion, the one you identified earlier.
So if you're into tech,
They suggest examples like Acquired, which does deep dives on companies, or maybe Pivot with Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway for sharp, witty tech and business arguments. The point is, listen to experts talking naturally at a high level about stuff you care about.
and for apps, does it recommend any fancy language learning apps?
Actually, no. It advises kind of avoiding the clunky, overly gamified ones.
Interesting. Why?
The philosophy seems to be, favor simple, focused tools, like Anki for spaced repetition flashcards, maybe a minimalist note-taking app for vocabulary.
Things that do one job well.
Exactly. The best tool, ultimately, is the one you'll actually use consistently, every day. Simplicity and focus again.
And we see these principles making a real difference in the case studies they include.
Yeah, like Adelwal, an entrepreneur from Lagos, Nigeria.
What did he do?
He consciously adopted Jobs' reality distortion field when pitching his fintech startup.
So he wasn't just presenting a dry business plan.
No, he was selling a vision, a dream, creating belief and excitement. And it worked. He got investors excited, turned them into evangelists, and secured funding. He used communication to shape reality.
Powerful stuff. And then there's Lynn from Ho Chi Minh City.
A public health official in Vietnam. She used Jobs' knack for connecting data and technology to human emotion.
How did she apply that?
Instead of just showing charts about public health issues, she incorporated powerful photographs. She told individual stories to illustrate the impact behind the complex data.
Making her reports and grant proposals more empathetic.
Exactly.
Well-
More relatable, more persuasive. Her English became more effective because it connected on a human level, helping her secure grants.
So these aren't just abstract ideas, they have real-world application.
Absolutely. Which brings us, I suppose, to the final part. The path to mastery.
Right. Because mastery isn't instant, it's a process. And the final lessons from Jobs seem to be about resilience and synthesis.
Yeah, the article brings up the Apple Lisa computer.
Which was a commercial failure, right? Before the Macintosh succeeded.
A spectacular failure, actually. But Apple learned from it. It wasn't the end, it was a step.
So for your English learning journey,
You're going to have Lisas. Essays that don't quite work, awkward conversations, presentations that fall flat, maybe even times you feel like you're going backwards.
these aren't failures to beat yourself up about.
No, they're data points. The key is to iterate, like a designer refining a product.
Analyze what went wrong.
Seek feedback, refine your approach, try again. The C1 learner who embraces that iterative cycle of learning from mistakes is the one who progresses much, much faster.
It's about resilience. And then there's the idea of connecting the dots.
Another Jobs classic. His point was that you could often only see how experiences connect looking backward.
Like his calligraphy class. It seemed random at the time.
Totally irrelevant to computers. But years later, it became absolutely crucial for the Mac's design, its unique selling point.
So how does that apply to you learning English?
Well, your journey might feel fragmented right now. You take an improv class, you read that biography, you listen to some British political podcasts, you watch that Sorkin movie.
It might seem like a random collection of activities.
Exactly. But the article encourages you to trust the process. Trust that these disparate dots, these different experiences and inputs, will eventually connect.
They'll merge somehow.
Spontaneously, maybe, to form your coherent, compelling, and uniquely personal communication style in English. You're building a repertoire you can draw on, even if you don't see all the connections yet.
Okay, that's quite profound. And finally, the article circles back to that reality distortion field.
But this time, applying it to yourself.
How does it work? Jobs used it to convince others.
Right, but think about the C1 plateau. How much of it is psychological?
A lot, probably. Beliefs about your accent, fear of sounding unnatural.
Exactly. If you believe your accent is a major barrier, you'll probably speak less, be more hesitant. You tell yourself, I'm just not a natural speaker. You won't take those necessary risks.
So the advice is,
To consciously create your own positive reality distortion field.
tell yourself you are an eloquent communicator.
Visualize yourself speaking fluently, confidently, engagingly in those situations that worry you, and then, crucially, act the part.
Fake it till you make it.
In a way, yeah. It's a cognitive behavioral technique. By acting as if you are already that confident speaker, you start to perform closer to that level you aspire to. You override the self-limiting beliefs.
So bringing this all together, what's the big takeaway?
I think learning English through the lens of Steve Jobs really reframes it. It's not just about acquiring rules and vocabulary.
It's about seeing language as a tool for impact.
Exactly, a tool for sharing your passions, for telling compelling stories, for simplifying complexity, and maybe even for shaping your own reality a little bit.
It's really about design, isn't it?
Design, curation, focus. Designing an effective learning system for yourself. Curating your influences carefully. Focusing on communication that's clear, compelling, and authentic.
Jobs demanded insanely great products.
And the article is basically saying, apply that same demanding standard to your own English communication. Don't settle for just functional.
Strive for more than just correctness. Aim for elegance, for connection, for impact.
By adopting that Jobsian mindset, by deconstructing his communication techniques, by using a carefully chosen toolkit,
You can transform yourself into the kind of communicator who doesn't just, speak English.
but who uses it to make things happen.
Yeah.
To inspire action, share ideas effectively.
And maybe, in your own way, leave your own small dent in the universe.
It's a powerful way to think about it.
So the final message seems clear. Stay hungry, stay foolish, and start thinking different about your English journey, starting today.